Would you ever go to counseling with Kody and Robyn to try to fix anything?
Like, no, I don't like them.
Yeah?
Oh, no. Why? There's no point of that. No, why would I need to do that? What do I need to do here to like finally really put this, like end this like completely? Obviously there's no legal marriage. And so there's no legal divorce. Like you don't have to get a divorce, but a spiritual release is essentially being released from the spiritual covenant you made to be married.
Janelle Brown just delivered the final devastating blow to Kody's crumbling empire, and the irony of how she got her freedom will blow your mind. After years of being spiritually bound to a man who abandoned her, prioritized Robyn over everyone else, and left her struggling while he lived comfortably in his Flagstaff mansion, Janelle has officially obtained her spiritual release from Kody Brown. But here's the twist that makes this story absolutely insane. The prophet who granted Janelle her freedom is the same man currently being sued by his own spiritual wife for refusing to release her after decades of begging. Yes, you heard that right. Janelle got divorced by a cult leader who won't divorce his own wife. And the dark history behind the church that still controls these women's minds is more disturbing than anything you've seen on Sister Wives. What really happened when Janelle went to the Apostolic United Brethren for her release? Why is she still defending a cult with a violent, abusive history? And what does Kody's reaction to losing another wife tell us about his desperate attempt to save face and control the narrative? The kingdom Kody built on the backs of 4 women is officially obliterated, and Janelle's escape reveals secrets about this family and this cult that will change everything you thought you knew. Janelle Brown is about to go on a mission to get herself released from Kody Brown. After years of ambiguity about whether she and Kody were actually divorced or just separated, after years of Kody claiming they were still together while treating her like she didn't exist, Janelle is taking the step that will finally, officially, spiritually, sever her connection to the man who wasted decades of her life. Now, the irony of this situation is absolutely staggering. Janelle is going to leaders at the Church of the Apostolic United Brethren to request her spiritual release, and the leader who is going to grant her this release, the prophet who will officially free her from her spiritual marriage to Kody, is currently embroiled in a lawsuit with his own ex-spiritual wife.
I think I went in so idealistic thinking, oh, this is going to be awesome, and the conflict started like almost immediately, and I thought, okay, this is very different than what I thought it was going to be. There was never like an exit plan. I was committed to my faith, and I'm like, yep, I'm going to figure this out.
This woman claims she's been seeking a release from him for decades. She's fighting him over property she claims he stole from her. She's accused him of abandonment, financial abuse, and refusing to grant her the very freedom he's about to grant Janelle. So Janelle is going to be released by a prophet who refuses to release his own wife. Let that irony sink in for a moment. The man who will tell Janelle she's free to move on with her life, free to potentially remarry if she chooses, free to sever her eternal spiritual connection to Kody Brown. That same man is holding his own wife captive in a spiritual marriage she desperately wants to escape. And Janelle is preparing for Kody to return into her life, which prompts a warning from her daughter Madison. Maddie reminds her mother that Kody has impeccable timing when it comes to showing up just to cause chaos. He has spent years and years and years finding ways to lure Janelle back in, to keep her on the hook, to maintain just enough connection that she never fully breaks free. But here's what makes this situation even more complex. Kody today claims he has zero interest in being in polygamy. He says he's totally done with plural marriage and would never consider it again. In this episode, he decides he's going to apologize to all the women to set them free, even though they've already set themselves free. Most people watching this believe Kody is doing this for the storyline, for damage control, for his ego, and to save his marriage with Robyn. The apology tour isn't about genuine remorse. It's about controlling the narrative one last time. Janelle and her friends discuss how she's ready to take the next step and get her spiritual release. But what viewers need to understand is the deeply disturbing history of the organization Janelle is still connected to. The Apostolic United Brethren isn't just some harmless religious group practicing an alternative lifestyle. This organization has a dark, violent, abusive history that makes Janelle's family's original concerns about her joining this cult completely valid. Let's do a history lesson that the show will never give you. Janelle and Adam Barber got together in 1988. This was a time period of considerable violence in polygamous sects in Utah and across the western United States. Understanding this context is crucial to understanding why Janelle's family was so concerned when she converted and why they ultimately cut her off. In 1978, the leader of the Apostolic United Brethren, Robyn Allred, was murdered. His life was ended at the hands of spiritual wives of a man named Ervil LeBaron. Ervil LeBaron was from Mexico and led a church founded by his brother. He eventually split from his brother Joel and decided he was going to eliminate all the men claiming to be prophets who he believed were false prophets. He was going to atone for their sins with blood. In fundamentalist Mormon doctrine, there's a concept called blood atonement. The belief is that some sins are so grievous they haven't been atoned for through the death of Jesus Christ, and therefore faithful believers are given righteous permission to end another person's life if they believe that person has committed a sin that cannot be atoned by Jesus alone. It's a terrifying doctrine that has been used to justify multiple murders within these polygamous sects. Ervil LeBaron went on a warpath. He was going to eliminate all the prophets he deemed false. During his lifespan, he was responsible for the death of his brother Joel. Another of his brothers mysteriously died in a car accident. He orchestrated the murder of Robyn Allred. He was eventually convicted for Robyn Allred's murder, though he and his wives were later acquitted in a complex legal situation.
Did you ever go to counseling with Kody and Robyn to try to fix anything?
Like, no, I don't like them.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All these things that how you feel. I think it's going to be so much easier for you just to move on and get past everything and really release.
I remember, like, at least the first couple of years, I'm like, I don't even want to think about it. And now I'm like, okay, what do I need to do here to like finally really put this, like, end this, like, completely? I just need to make sure all the little pieces are.
Ervil died in prison, but his legacy of violence didn't end with his death. Here's where it gets even more disturbing. Ervil had a group of followers who found his writings and teachings and subscribed to these radical beliefs. Ervil had created a hit list of people he believed needed to be eliminated, and these followers, going off his teachings, took it upon themselves to commit these acts for him, even after Ervil had died. Janelle was getting involved in a community that was already at the center of serious violence related to wars between these polygamous factions. The violence increased and amplified in June of 1988 in Texas. Followers of Ervil made a decision to finish his hit list and eliminate the people Ervil believed needed to be taken out. They went to various locations, and it all happened at 4 p.m. The victims were former members of Ervil's sect who had defected, and they were targeted under the doctrine of blood atonement. Martha Chenoweth was shot 3 times in Houston. Dwayne Chenoweth and his 8-year-old daughter Jenny were killed at another location in Houston. The daughter was harmed because she was present when her father was murdered. Ed Marston, who was at a business in a suburb of Dallas, also died hours later. This was the height of sect-on-sect violence, and it was happening at the exact time Janelle decided to join the Apostolic United Brethren. Within the Allred group itself, after Robyn Allred was killed in 1978, Owen Allred had taken over leadership. During the period when Janelle joined, it was exposed in the church that leaders were using a disturbing doctrine where they believed they were descendants of Jesus and their bloodline needed to remain pure. In order to keep their bloodline pure, some of these men were having sexual relations with their own daughters. Let's be clear. This isn't relations. This is sexual assault. This is incest. This is child abuse justified by twisted religious doctrine. There was also another leader who was found to be using medical practices to sexually assault both men and women through the use of colonics and other procedures. Multiple men in the Brethren were accused, which resulted in a mass exodus of people leaving the AUB in the late 80s, throughout the 90s, and into the 2000s. In the late 90s in Utah, a man was at the Bluffdale Church when someone walked into the church and slit his throat. It was another blood atonement killing that happened at the church that Janelle attended. Not long after Janelle joined the AUB, one of the Brethren members, Gustavo Palacios, was arrested for sexually assaulting his stepdaughters because of that twisted purity doctrine. It was pervasive and severe. His wife, who happens to be Christine Brown's first cousin, was also arrested for assisting in the abuse and allowing it to happen. In the same period, a woman named Virginia Hill sued the Apostolic United Brethren for stealing more than $1 million from her through embezzlement and using it to buy property that is still owned by the cult today.
Mom came to save me from the polygamist because no daughter of hers was going to marry into some crazy cult. And she ended up marrying Kody's dad, and they actually got married months before we did. When they decided to get married, I was like, that's going to be a little hard to explain, but all right. It was a little weird at first, but I'm like, okay, it's great. Like, somebody's here with me, I guess, you know. A lot of my family did not understand my choices. They were hesitant to still remain in contact with me just because they thought I'd gone off the deep end.
Owen Allred was implicated in all of that financial fraud, so there were completely reasonable fears from Janelle's family. They likely cut her off for their own safety, but also because the LDS Church is fully against polygamy, and they believed she was joining a dangerous cult. And they were right. This organization has a documented history of violence, sexual abuse, financial fraud, and using religious doctrine to justify horrific crimes. Yet Janelle joined anyway. She gave up her family, her previous life, her safety, all to be part of this system. And she's still kind of defending being in it to this day, even though she's now discussing leaving. This is what cult indoctrination does to people. It makes them willing to ignore every red flag, every warning sign, every piece of evidence that they're in danger. FOMO moment. What happened to Janelle during her years in this cult that she's never spoken about on camera? What abuse did she witness or experience that's been edited out of Sister Wives? And why is she still so reluctant to completely denounce an organization with such a horrifying history? The answers reveal the psychological grip these groups have on their members. When people convert to cults, they often become more diehard and resolute in their beliefs than people who were born into those systems. This is because converts have actively chosen these beliefs. They've given up significant things in their lives, like their families, to join. They think they're on a righteous path that will lead them to heaven, while everyone else is condemned. This conversion mindset made Janelle willing to let down her guardrails and ignore red flags, even though there was abuse and conflict from the very beginning. When Janelle says there were conflicts in the Brown family from the start, what she's really describing is abuse. What was happening between her and Mary was abusive. What was happening between her and Kody was abusive. But as a true believer at that point, she rationalized it all as necessary for her celestial salvation. Janelle is now in a place where she would like to get a spiritual release, and she only considered this after learning about it from Mary. Mary went through the process first, paving the way for Janelle to understand that it was possible to officially sever the spiritual connection without Kody's permission or cooperation. What Janelle's friends are doing in their conversations with her is trying to get her to move on completely. But Janelle is still stuck in the mindset that she's connected to Kody because of the spiritual relationship they established when they were married in the AUB temple. They were given a sealing blessing that connected them for time and all eternity. In their belief system, this means that in the afterlife, she and Kody are still together. Through the teachings of these fundamentalist groups, women who are abandoned or separated from their husbands are taught that the only way to get to heaven, even if they separate, is to stay celibate and faithful to their husband. This ensures they can still enter the celestial kingdom. What Janelle is admitting is that she still feels like she's Kody's wife spiritually, and she can't be with anyone else until that relationship has been officially severed through a spiritual release. Her next step is going to the AUB leadership to get that release, to cut the eternal connection. In another clip, she says that if she dies, and it turns out her religion is true, she doesn't want to be stuck in heaven married to Kody. She wants to be free from him, even in the afterlife. This reveals how deeply the indoctrination still controls Janelle's thinking. She's one of the most pragmatic, business-minded, seemingly logical people in the Brown family. Yet she's still so controlled by these beliefs that she needs official permission from cult leaders to feel free from a man who abandoned her years ago. It's interesting because nobody else on the show, other than maybe Robyn, refers to it as their religion anymore. Kody says he doesn't believe it anymore. Mary in this episode is incredibly clear that she has zero belief in the system. She says she would never do polygamy again. She doesn't believe in the faith. She even says, I don't know if I'll go to heaven. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I'm not going to live a faith that tells me I have to do things I don't believe in. Mary doesn't believe it at all. She doesn't even refer to it as her faith anymore. Christine doesn't refer to it as her faith, but Janelle still does. She calls it my religion. She's still holding on to that component, and it will take a long time for her to shed that indoctrination if she ever fully sheds it at all. But Janelle did get the release. Kody actually exposed this a few weeks ago on Nick Vile's podcast. He said that 2 of his wives got spiritual releases. So Janelle successfully obtained her spiritual divorce from Kody through the AUB. Now, here's where the story gets even more disturbing. In order to get the release, Janelle had to go to the Brethren leadership and request it. It's the prophet who releases them spiritually. That prophet is Dave Watson. Dave Watson is currently being sued by one of his plural wives in an active lawsuit over property she jointly owns with him that he claims she has no vested interest in. She claims he abandoned her and locked her out of her own property. She says he would leave her for weeks at a time, spending all his time with his favorite wife while not contributing to the family. She claims she opened a natural food store and all the money went to Dave. She claims she helped him at his other business and all the money went to Dave. In her lawsuit, she states she has been trying to get a spiritual release from Dave Watson for years, and he refuses to grant her freedom. Her daughter Emily has spoken publicly about her experience growing up in that household. They've accused Dave of child abuse and physical abuse of his wives. So in order for Janelle to get the release she received, she got it from a man who is doing the exact same thing to his wife, Sherilyn, and other wives, to this day that Kody did to Janelle for years. Dave claims he has 8 wives, but he doesn't actually have 8 wives. 3 or 4 have left. One is still there, but doesn't want to be. She just wants to get out, and he won't let her go. The irony is absolutely staggering. Janelle is going back to a cult whose own prophet has a wife suing him for basically doing to her what Kody did to Janelle. A man who won't release his own wife is releasing Janelle from Kody. It's like getting divorced by someone who refuses to divorce his own spouse. The hypocrisy is breathtaking.
I just need to make sure all the little pieces are in place. But now I'm like, I think it's time to kind of really cut all those ties with Kody. So it's become more of a thing in my brain now. Like I said, I want to cut that final tie, whether I imagine that it's there or I feel that it's there, whatever. I just maybe need to make sure and cut all the ties. Like, so what if my religion is right and I wake up and I'm in heaven and I'm married to him? I'm like, oh hell, I'm not having that happen. Do you know what I mean?
What does Janelle know about Dave Watson and his treatment of his wives that she's not saying publicly? Did she have any hesitation about getting her release from a man accused of the same abuse and control she experienced? And what does it say about the continued grip this cult has on her, that she still went through their system instead of just walking away completely? The psychological manipulation runs deeper than anyone realizes. The indoctrination and manipulation in these fundamentalist groups is so thick, so coercive, so constant, that it becomes nearly impossible for members to see the truth clearly. It taps into their entire faith-based system regarding what they believe they'll receive in the afterlife. It plays into their deepest insecurities about salvation. It tells them they will become gods and goddesses, creating a sense of being the most righteous people in the world. To give all of that up is enormously difficult, even when faced with overwhelming evidence of abuse, fraud, and violence. The belief system promises exaltation, eternal families, godhood. Walking away means potentially giving up eternal salvation and the chance to be with your children forever. The psychological hooks are incredibly powerful. Over and over, Janelle has shown she's a smart woman, yet she continues to not always make the smartest decisions when it comes to this cult and her relationship with Kody. She's gotten the spiritual release now, which is a positive step forward. Let's hope she stays out of the AUB for good, settles in North Carolina, and moves on with her life while continuing to move forward. Her family members tried to help her years ago, and she disconnected from them to stay in the cult. Now she's finally getting released, but she's getting that release from a man who's worse than Kody in many ways. A man actively being sued for abusing and financially exploiting his own wives while refusing to grant them freedom. Kody's kingdom is officially obliterated. He started with 4 wives and 18 children. He built his entire identity around being this successful, polygamous patriarch who was living celestial marriage and proving that plural families could work in modern America. Sister Wives was supposed to normalize polygamy, to show the world that these relationships could be functional and even beautiful. Instead, Kody systematically destroyed every relationship through his selfishness, favoritism, and narcissism. Christine left first, finding the courage to walk away and build a new life. Mary was essentially forced out after years of being rejected and neglected. Janelle has now officially obtained her spiritual release, and Robyn is left as the sole wife, living with a man who's bitter, angry, and desperate to control a narrative that's completely escaped his grasp. The Brown family empire has collapsed entirely. The Coyote Pass property that was supposed to be their unified compound sits vacant, a testament to failed dreams and broken promises. The children are scattered across the country, most of them estranged from their father. The plural family experiment, documented on Sister Wives for nearly 2 decades, has proven to be an abject failure, and yet Janelle still clings to elements of the belief system that enabled all of this dysfunction. She still refers to it as her religion. She still went through the cult system to get her release rather than just walking away entirely. She still appears to have some level of belief in the eternal consequences of these earthly sealings. This is what makes cult indoctrination so insidious and so difficult to break free from completely. Even when members leave physically, even when they recognize the abuse and the problems, the mental and spiritual hooks can remain for years or even decades. The fear of eternal consequences, the worry about what happens in the afterlife, the deeply embedded belief that this is the only path to exaltation. These thoughts don't disappear just because someone gets divorced or moves to a different state. Janelle's journey out of her marriage to Kody is happening in stages. The physical separation came first, then the emotional separation as she recognized how badly he treated her compared to Robyn, then the legal and financial separation as she fought for her share of the Coyote Pass property, and now the spiritual separation with this release from the AUB. But the final separation, the complete mental and psychological freedom from the cult's teachings, that may take many more years, or it may never fully happen. Some people who leave these groups spend the rest of their lives with lingering doubts and fears about whether they made the right choice, whether they've condemned themselves eternally, whether the teachings they rejected were actually true. The fact that Janelle felt she needed this spiritual release at all shows how much control these beliefs still have over her. A truly free person would simply walk away, recognizing that a marriage certificate from a cult has no legitimate authority over her life or her eternity. But Janelle couldn't do that. She needed the official stamp of approval from the very system that enabled her abuse. The tragedy is that Janelle's story isn't unique. Thousands of women in fundamentalist Mormon groups across the United States are trapped in similar situations. They're in marriages to men who neglect them, abuse them, financially exploit them, and prioritize other wives. They know they're unhappy. They recognize the dysfunction, but they can't leave because of the spiritual consequences they've been taught to fear. And when they do try to leave, they often find that the men who control these sects, the prophets and leaders, refuse to grant them releases. These women are held hostage by men who claim divine authority to control their eternal destinies. It's spiritual abuse on a massive scale, and it's happening right now in communities across the western United States. Dave Watson refusing to release his own wife while releasing Janelle is just one example of how these power dynamics work. The prophet has complete control over these women's spiritual status. He can grant or withhold releases based on his own whims, his own preferences, his own desire to maintain control. There's no oversight, no accountability, no way for these women to appeal if a release is denied. Janelle got lucky that Dave granted her release. But Sherilyn and his other wives aren't so lucky. They remain trapped, legally fighting for their property rights while spiritually held captive by a man who claims to speak for God. And the AUB continues to operate, continues to recruit new members, continues to practice polygamy despite its documented history of violence, abuse, and fraud. The fact that Sister Wives has spent nearly 20 seasons documenting this family without ever seriously examining the cult that enabled and encouraged the dysfunction is journalistic malpractice. TLC has profited enormously from this show, while completely glossing over the dark realities of the Apostolic United Brethren and similar groups. Viewers have watched the Brown family drama, the jealousy, the favoritism, the breakdowns, but they've never been given the full context of the violent, abusive organization that taught these people their twisted beliefs about marriage, salvation, and gender roles. The sanitized version of polygamy presented on Sister Wives bears little resemblance to the reality of life in these fundamentalist groups. FOMO moment. What other dark secrets about the AUB and its leadership will eventually come to light? How many other women are currently trapped in marriages they desperately want to escape but can't because prophets like Dave Watson refuse to grant releases? And what will happen to the Brown children who were raised in this belief system? Will they break free completely, or will the indoctrination continue to control their lives even after Sister Wives ends? The full truth about this family and this cult is still being hidden. Kody's kingdom is obliterated, but the cult that created that kingdom continues to operate and continues to harm people. Janelle is free from Kody legally and spiritually now, but she's not yet free from the mental prison of the beliefs that kept her trapped for so long. Her journey is far from over, and the real question is whether she'll ever fully break free from the psychological control of the Apostolic United Brethren, or whether she'll spend the rest of her life still partially tethered to their teachings. The collapse of the Brown family is complete. 4 wives reduced to 1, 18 children, mostly estranged from their father. A plural family experiment that failed spectacularly on national television. Kody Brown's legacy is one of broken relationships, damaged children, and women who wasted decades of their lives supporting a man who never actually valued them. And through it all, the cult that enabled this dysfunction continues unchanged. The same leaders, the same teachings, the same abusive power dynamics, the same women trapped in marriages they can't escape. Sister Wives may be ending, but the real-life tragedy of fundamentalist Mormon polygamy continues for thousands of people who don't have television cameras documenting their pain. Janelle Brown has taken her final step away from Kody Brown by obtaining her spiritual release. She's officially, eternally, completely free from the man who wasted so much of her life. That's worth celebrating. But until she's also free from the cult that taught her she needed that release in the first place, her liberation remains incomplete. The kingdom Kody built has been obliterated, but the belief system that allowed him to build it in the first place remains intact and continues to damage lives. What are your thoughts on Janelle finally getting her spiritual release? Do you think she'll ever fully break free from the AUB's teachings, or will she always maintain some level of belief in their doctrine? And what do you think about the irony of getting released by a prophet who won't release his own wives? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this deep dive into the dark history of the Apostolic United Brethren and Janelle's journey to freedom was eye-opening, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Soul Sister Wives. We're committed to telling the full story behind Sister Wives, not just the sanitized version TLC shows you. We research the real history, the real abuse, the real cult dynamics that created this family's dysfunction. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss our coverage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we continue uncovering the truth behind the Brown family and the dangerous organization that controlled their lives for so long.